Good morning, everyone. All right. Thank you. I know coffee was early in the morning. We're all waiting for lunch coming up. It's a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Eduardo Redondo Garcia. I am the global head of the cloud security architecture team for Checkpoint. And this is my first time in Ireland. So let me tell you, I had a pleasant pair of days over the weekend. I was able to go visit Malahide, so such a beautiful place to go, and such a great country, and so green and friendly. Today, I have the pleasure to share with you all part of our strategy when it comes to protecting Gen AI. And there is not much to be said when it comes to understanding that we are facing one of the most transformative technologies that we have seen in many decades. This is not a new trend. This is not something that is going to come and go. This is actually technology that is so powerful, as you already know, to transform the way we live, the way we work, the way we conduct business. Artificial intelligence is giving us in enterprises the opportunity to transform also interactions, bring different new ways of consuming business, looking at data and understanding data, and how we harness the data to be able to provide a lot of value, whether it's back end or front end. And with that, also, it's a powerful generation of technology, but at the same time introduces a very high range of risks associated to it that we have not seen before. What you're going to hear today is a two-level approach. What we're doing to protect the corporate enterprise users in their usage of Gen AI applications, whether it's through a browser, whether it's through an application on their desktops. But also the second part is that I'm going to share with you our recent acquisition with Lakira, which is to those companies that are creating your own models, whether they're hosted on your private networks or you're hosted on the public. We're able to help you speed and bring security along with those Gen AI applications. So the first part, right? Gen AI is everywhere. If we really think about it, there's a lot of buzz that's happening in the industry. But when you look at the end consumers, everybody knows, even our kids know, how to go to use ChatGPT, how to go and use Grok, or any of these applications out there. What happens in the corporate world as well is that a lot of the users are also trying to leverage this tool. Whether it's for something simple, I want to go and validate a document, and I want to redact this document, so I now want to tell ChatGPT to help me rewrite it for a better executive presentation, right? Something simple as that, it's already taking place. But what is taking place also are the integrations with known applications like Excel or like with the Copilot type. Also how users are accessing in the corporate world. Some of them are downloading the apps, and some others are just using a browser extension that got modified. And the third part is that you have developers who may want to review code and make sure that their code probably is going to help me expedite my code writing, and I want to go and leverage any of these tools. Well, so from a corporate perspective, how do we get first visibility into how our corporate users are leveraging these Gen AI applications? That's job number one from a security standpoint, right? And assuming that they're using it, am I making sure that we're protecting our organization from exfiltrating data? Tokens, secrets, passwords, how about driver's license information, social security information, any type of private data that may be shared, not intentionally, but perhaps it goes along the lines. Example, let's say somebody from the legal team is reviewing a contract. It goes and says, oh, I want to use ChatGPT just because I want to make sure that the legal contract is going to be going to different parties. And I want to expedite that redactation of it, right? So I go copy, paste it, or upload it. By the way, probably somebody inadvertently put information there that is private information of your corporate. How do we avoid that from taking place? How do we avoid that from copy and paste into these tools? Or an HR person, right, who probably took an Excel and imported it into ChatGPT, and at the same time, now that information is learned by the model because they're not using the right policy levels. This is where we can help your organizations create a safer adoption when it comes to unlocking the value, but at the same time reducing the risk. Our Harmony platform allows us to be able to give you this type of protection in different capacities. One, you may say, well, I don't want to install another agent on my desktops or laptops, right? I just want to use browser extension. That's one way how we can help you protect. Another way we can help you protect is by those that actually download the agents. We have the ability to provide an agent that can help you protect the entire policies on how they leverage, the corporate users leverage these AI applications. So whether it's an integration, whether it's a dev tool or a desktop, we can help you provide better security towards it. Now, there's some misconceptions on it. Is, hey, I can just block it. I can proxy and block these applications. Perhaps, perhaps not. Because it depends on what your policies are looking and the type of traffic flows, you may not be able to block that at all. Second misconception is, oh, the policy that we have in our corporate, we're already told that go ahead and use Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, but don't use Claude. Don't use Grok. Good luck. If, hopefully everybody's abiding to the internal corporate policies, right? Or have DLP. Well, DLP may work well depending on the type of traffic scanning flows that you're using in your applications, but it may not work in this type of agentic Gen AI when it comes to copy and paste. That could be one element. And the other one is, oh, it's still too early to see threats behind Gen AI. Well, let's say you have a developer team that says, I want to expedite my code writing, and I got this from a GitHub, and I'm basically just going to copy, go to ChatGPT, paste it, and doom, there it goes. In real time, we're able to provide you that security mechanism because the DLP policies that we have, whether it's through a browser extension or our agent, is able to identify that in that particular copy and paste, there were tokenized passwords that were embedded. And maybe the developer didn't remember or pay attention because it's just copy and paste the whole document. Right? So this is one way that in real time we can allow you to provide that type of policy protection. It is also gives you the flexibility to say, well, do I want that person to still use the tool and give me a notice or what's happening so this can get captured and logged behind the scenes so I know that they're doing this and I just want them to give an extra step to think about what their procedures are. Or you can completely block it. Okay? But then the developer says, like, okay, I'm going to bypass IT, not intentionally, but I need to speed up my work. So I'm now going to go and actually use a different tool. I'm going to use Gemini. Well, similar case. Now in this case, he opens, copies it, and what we've introduced recently is a redactation in real time capability. What that means is that as soon as he made a paste into it, we detected that there was, if you can see it here, I don't know if you can see it in there. You can see the API master tokens, they got captured. So what we do is we obfuscate that information to make sure that the person understands that there is sensitive private information into what they pasted. It still allow them to use the Gen AI application so they can definitely take advantage of what they're doing, but we don't provide that information because that's sensitive and private. So that was deobfuscated. So that's a redactation feature that we introduced to still allow users to be able to leverage these tools, but at the same time protect the sensitive information. Okay? And then obviously, everybody needs a great dashboard. We need to have visibility into which applications are being used. Are we going to add another third application, right? What type of use cases are we seeing out there? What type of threats? What type of data is being, and what assets are we protecting? How are we protecting those assets and have the telemetry behind it so that from an administrative perspective, I now have visibility into something that corporate I'm giving access or I'm not giving access, right? So this is a way of us providing you help with Gen AI applications from a corporate perspective. Second part is like, okay, now as an enterprise, I want to leverage the use of the tools, the public tools, like the OpenAI. I want to leverage their APIs to be able to leverage some of the large language models because that's the way they're built. But at the same time, I want to build some language models internally that have access to external information. That external integration, that's one. How do we protect external integrations for Gen AI, homegrown Gen AI environments? And the definition here is so broad because the first one is that, okay, I have applications, I have the web front ends, have applications that are front-ending large language models or small language models, whatever the flavor or type is. I need to also protect agents. I need to protect the models, and I need to protect their external integrations. Now, if we think about it, traditionally, we already know how to secure modern web applications. Whether you're in Azure, GCP, or AWS, we've learned throughout the years, we have the technology, you have the policies, you have the mechanisms to be able to do that. But the difference is that in the agentic world, there is a whole new paradigm shift on how applications behave, okay? And the first one is that the threats out there are real. You know, Amazon, a few months ago, had this issue with Amazon Q where they already actually put a model out there that didn't have the guardrails to protect the agentic and the autonomous behavior of the agents, that if somebody actually does a prompt injection, and a prompt injection is as simple as creating a prompt to tell a model to behave in a way that was not intended. That's a simple prompt injection, where it can actually expose private information, or it can actually create some activities because of misuse of access control that actually allow to create actions that could create a lot of harm, right? But second is model abuse. In the model abuse, now it's a model reacting in a way that is not intended to do. Let's say somebody is interrogating a model or is asking help to buy illegal guns. Well, the potential prompt return on that model is that, no, we don't want, we cannot help you in this type of service. That could be just an elegant way of saying that's not what I'm built for. But the problem comes into how users leverage those models, because somebody can actually create a prompt injection with an encoding mechanism that the model is not going to understand and provide the return of outputs that is not desirable by a corporation. So this is not model hallucinations. This is actually abuse of model content and the jailbreaking of models. All these types of threats are real. And by the way, what it used to build in days and weeks, now it can be built in minutes. And this is what is happening in the real world of Gen AI. So let's look about what's the main difference between the traditional web applications versus the Gen AI applications. Here, from a user interaction, it's pretty straightforward. We have a user, it has predefined actions through the logic flows, and they can get to certain elements of the application or the data. This is the logic flows that are normally constructed in modern cloud applications. Okay. The difference with Gen AI is that a user now interacts not perhaps on a front web page, but now can interact in different ways, because I can leverage natural language to interact with a prompt. And that natural language, now it can be more extensive, and it's something that is undeterministic, because whatever one person is saying, it could be the same activity, I could be saying completely different. I could be writing in Spanish, somebody could be writing in a completely different language. So that behavior from a workflow into the models is completely different, because in one, I know the predetermined actions that it will take. In the other one, it can be completely different from multiple outputs. This generates a lot of different changes into how users interact, what the responses are, and what it could actually return. Okay? So this is predictable. The other one, there's too many variations. This one we know how to secure. We've been doing it for a long time. The other one is we have to think differently about how we approach it. We have to understand the components, not just the front end. We have to understand how the models behave. We have to understand if the models are connected to external integrations, if we have multiple agents, what the type of activities the agents are performing, how one agent is taking output generated by a model and feeding the next activity to another agent. What access controls are each one of these agents having? So if we think about it, it's a complete different paradigm shift in the terms of the entire operation flow. Now let's look at the data exposure, right? Again, it's on the modern web application, it's pretty straightforward. We understand the layers. We have the control and we have the data plane. We understand where our data resides. We understand what control mechanisms we provided the data. We understand the control logic. There are very few variations here. In the Gen AI world, it's completely different. because now my database or my data plane is not one single element or multiple databases or multiple repositories. Now my complete data plane could be, again, let's say I'm a travel agency and I created an agent that is going to help somebody procure the best flight. Well, let's think about that, right? I may be looking for flights from Ireland to London, but the dates will be different. The hours will be different. My pricing, I may say, well, this is the range of pricing that I'm looking at. Oh, by the way, once you find the best option from a flight, I also want to know what hotels are within this vicinity. I may want to also book something within that hotel or service. All these types of activities will make the model look internally, but potentially look at externally from a sensitive time perspective. What are those activities? What does that data look like? What are the outputs generated look like? What is that going to look like in my environment? And the biggest question is, how are we going to secure it? How do we make sure that our users are going to obtain the right responses, but we're also not getting completely away from what the business is intending to do? And yes, that's a customer-facing scenario, right? But think about it internally as well. What can we do from a GenAI perspective to increase our productivity, to increase the ability to provide better services? I was talking recently this morning with somebody from an organization that's building GenAI models behind the scenes. All the front ends are not looked by the users, but behind the scenes, they're leveraging GenAI to provide faster quotes, personalized quotes for insurance, the ability to generate a quote that has a higher propensity to purchase based on the historical behavior of those clients, right? That's where GenAI can really expedite the usage, even internally from a corporate. But the question remains, how do we properly protect it, right? These are some of the challenges that we have, because when GenAI, it generates a lot of new blind spots that we didn't have to deal with them before. These are part of the top threats that we've seen. I'm pretty sure most of you or all of you are familiar with OWASP. And OWASP is the Open Web Application API and now GenAI security project that worldwide has a lot of people providing a lot of input. And most organizations and security companies like Checkpoint, we look at the publications to understand what are the bigger threats that are taking place in each one of these type of environments. Well, we've developed against one of their top 4, which is what we're seeing in pretty much globally. The first one is prompt injection, right? If we think about prompt injection, it's the same scenario that we were talking about before that I showed you. One from a corporate user perspective, but this prompt injection can also happen internally. Now, let's say that somebody intentionally is trying to hack or provide a prompt to one of my internal language models, okay? They could be doing it in natural language. They could be doing it in multiple languages. But what if they're actually using multimodality, okay? What if actually instead of that prompt injection doesn't come in a natural language, but it comes hidden in a code, or it comes hidden in an image, or it comes hidden in a video, or it comes hidden in a voice? How do we protect against that? That's a completely multimodal with GenAI. When you enable that, now you're also opening that vector of attack. It can be attacked now with images that by our natural eyes, we're not going to be able to know. Or the existing tools and technologies to help you protect will very likely not catch those type of prompt injections, okay? And then normally a prompt injection that is done intentionally is looking to perform a type of action. It could be a malicious output because I want to see how the model behaves, what kind of responses I receive, or it could be just to exfiltrate data, right? I want to stole credentials. I'm looking for credentials. What we used to see normally coming from a web application, now that same type of threat and same type of attack, systematic attack, where I'm going to exfiltrate data, it can also be done with language models, right? And last but not least is that model abuse. We want to make sure that the content that we're generating through the models is the right content. Also, any type of DDoS protection. We want to make sure that the rate of the type of prompts that are being ingested are the right types, that somebody's not intentionally trying to just conduct a DDoS attack on it. Okay, so let me share with you a little bit of my background and story. I've been now in this industry for 30 years. Part of my 30 years, I was a customer, and I've been a majority part also in companies like Checkpoint. Some of them, you know, Cisco, Amazon Web Services, Logic Monitor, and Checkpoint. Prior to Checkpoint, I was a chief product officer developing SaaS platforms for financial sector that will allow the financial sector to reduce risk by identifying certain behaviors on mobile numbers, not mobile devices. The example is that, you know, how many of you have changed a mobile device in the last year? The last 2 years? The last 3 years? Okay, similar. I'm one of the laggers. I normally change every 3 years, right? I want to see the new updates in the hardware and so on. The other question is, how many of you have kept the same phone number for more than 5 years? For more than 10, yeah. I've had it for 25 years, right? So what we're looking at is developing a threat detection on the mobile number behavior and any subtle changes that is data. First-party data is what we had. Secondary party data were from aggregators, companies that will send you an SMS message to tell you how you perform a bank transaction, and therefore here is a validation of your bank transaction, or email. Those are over-the-top aggregators. Or we were looking at also at telco information. The reason I share that is because I had 3 biggest challenges to deal with as a chief product officer, right? I wasn't looking at it from a security perspective. My job number 1 was to develop a platform that can be leveraged by the financial sector to reduce risk. My job was to develop and launch the product. It wasn't to secure it. But obviously, there were some regulations we had to attend. There were some regulations we have to abide, which we did. But when we sat at the board, and I started looking at one of the best ways to leverage these new applications that we were creating is by harnessing the power of AI. Hence, machine learning was a no-brainer, followed by Gen AI and language models, because we wanted to make sure that we got some outputs out of machine learning from a potential threat or misbehavior or abnormality, and we wanted to feed it back into a large language model that will help us later look at the data from different lenses and build agents that could take into that data and provide different actions. Because perhaps somebody at a bank wanted to interrogate, as a new customer was onboarded, how they look at the data. And instead of us sending a message, false, or this is a potential threat or not, we wanted to give those individuals at the banks the opportunity to interrogate the data in different ways through natural language. That's where the Gen AI comes in place. So compliance was a big thing we had to think about, right? Of course, servicing the financial sector was something we had to take very, very seriously. And it wasn't a checkbox, but many of you are probably facing these challenges. ISO 27001, you know, that's one of them, right? That we had to make sure that we comply and that we were working towards. NIST was the other one. SOC Type 2 was the other one, right? So very standard types of regulations or compliance that we need to go after. The third element is, as I was developing products, my job is to launch into market, make sure they work, make sure that we can generate revenue for the company. But we had to sit at the board, because I'll tell you what happened in my story, because this never happens to anybody else, right? Once we had our MVP, we tested, we had great customer feedback, we went to the cloud team and said, all right, how are you going to secure this? Help us secure this. And guess what happened? That cloud infrastructure that they had, it wasn't working. The security practices that they were putting in place, it was not enough. We were not going to be able to do what traditionally they have been able to do very well before. Not only we're not going to be compliant, but also we're not going to be able to protect. So we had to get that job number 2 done well and look at the services. Not in our case, we were in AWS. Look at the services that we could protect by leveraging technologies for web applications and API protection with AI behind the scenes, not with rule-based types of tools. And the last part is, how do we secure the actual agentic AI flow that I mentioned to you. Here's where it comes now, the Lakira announcement that we made. Lakira is an actually Gen AI native company. It was built by the founders who came from Meta and Google. And one of the biggest value proposition is that they looked at the way of building a new and complete generation of language models built specifically with threats and indicators of threats in order to protect Gen AI. So this is Gen AI protecting Gen AI, but this is not leveraging normal models. The foundational security models that were built by Lakira is to help specifically identify threats in a Gen AI space. So that's number one. Number two is the scalability to be enterprise ready. And by scalability, we mean that it has to be easy to adopt by the development teams, right? Within 5 minutes, I provide you the APIs, and a development team can integrate this and put them in testing. So the ability to be able to absorb that into your practice is part of the enterprise scalability. Second is the performance, right? Within 50 milliseconds, we can detect and analyze prompts. The majority of the average prompts, 40 to 50 milliseconds. And the third part is to make sure that we have a high detection rate, but a low false positive rate. That's the Lakira. Behind the scenes, we've integrated this. We've had the models that help us continue to invest back into the learning modes of the model, over 50 million different threats that we're seeing. We support 100 languages today, by the way. Most other platforms out there support just a handful of languages. We can support up to 100 today. And the ability to do red teaming into fitting the model organization. The red teaming part is doing some security assessment in your existing language models to help you validate how well you're doing or to show you that you may have some gaps. Okay? So that's the Lakira, and this is just the flow of what we protect. What we're protecting on the AI application is the front end, is also the language models, and it's also the external integrations through retrieval augmented generation or through MCP, which is the Model Context Protocol, which is very new, but it's being used a lot nowadays. And provide you a dashboard so that you can see the types of threats that are taking place, right? What assets, what applications are being protected, that you can identify if it's a CRM agent, it's a supply agent, right? Is this a shopping application from a web front? The type of threats that you're seeing, what type of data exfiltration, if you're seeing any. What type of data are they going after, right? Social security number, driver's license, credit cards information, et cetera. So you have a dashboard that is integrated behind this. We've integrated Lakira with our web application and firewall, okay? And here's how we approach it. We have dual layer to protect. The first layer is a machine learning model that is looking at classifying the most known prompts out there. If it's not malicious, we let it go through, it's approved, and we can catch about 90% of the behavior with those models. And the second model is looking at your contextual environment, okay? How many users are using it this way? If it passes the first model, the second layer is to look at semantically how the words are structured in your language model, what type of threats, what type of behavior they're exhibiting, and what does that look like in your own particular environment. So this is looking externally at all the threats, and secondarily, it's looking at internally in your particular environment. This gives us a very high rate of catching threats, but a low false positive rate, right? If not, then we can allow it or block it. And we can do this at fast pace. I just want to show you this really quick, that part of that semantic engine is that as we learn your agentic environment, we're able to clusterize it and understand the embedding on how the language model is behaving so that we understand the right behavior in the contextual corporate world. The beauty of this is that also this can be deployed in different fashions. You can deploy it in the cloud, very fast, 5 to 10 minutes of API. This can be deployed air-gapped if you have data governance for privacy needs. None of this, if you choose to, can be shared with the Lakira backend. So there's no data backend being shared for protection if that's what the customer chooses to do. But it's fast, it's reliable, it's built to protect Gen AI, and it's given us a great opportunity to deploy them in different ways so you can adapt it fast. And I want to close with this. The first, Lakira has been already used by some well-known organizations, Citibank, Nubank, Starbucks. So they're protecting the top organizations already. This integration, again, we have different ways of you can deploy it. We have different ways on how you can leverage this technology. And there's a game that I will invite you, when you have time, go to lakira.ai, search for Gandalf, and you can tell your IT teams to play this game. This is a way of how we've actually got over 1 million players worldwide. And the game is all about trying to obtain a secret password from the model. And it's just a prompt. It's a natural language prompt, and it's got different levels. But it's really good because we tested this with different types of attacks, with different types of obfuscation, injection attacks. But what it's given us is a lot of intelligence worldwide. And that intelligence, those types of threats against GenAI, we're taking that, and it's one of the data that helps us feed and make our backend more robust. Okay? Here's a quick snapshot of how this works in real time. And one thing that I want to leave with you is this. This is GenAI in real time, not the demo, this is just a slide, but runtime protection of GenAI. This is not leveraging your standard guardrails from a native cloud provider. This is runtime. Means runtime is I'm putting a process, and in real time, I'm making a decision from a security standpoint. Okay? That's runtime. So you have a normal web application front end that I just want to shop. I go to one of the agents and I say, hey, how can you assist me? I go like, I want to buy some new watches or AirPods. What types of AirPods do you have out there? And I'll interact with the prompting in natural language. But if I want to prompt or inject a prompt in telling the agent that I'm an admin and I actually want that agent to give me credential information, right? If that is not protected, if the agent is not protected, if the workflow is not protected, if the model allows it to do through the normal guardrails, most likely I can extract data. Okay? This is a real thing that can happen. Versus saying that, okay, I can protect this, and if I issue the same, you'll be protected by CloudGuard WAF, basically, right? And by the way, we tested this with classic Chinese language, Spanish, and all types of different languages, and it works in real time the same way. We're able to catch these types of threats. And with this, I'm going to close. I want to thank you for your time, but to leave you with 3 things to remember, right? One is that creating a safer adoption for your corporate users is key, but it's also key for your organization to have visibility. We cannot protect what we can't see. And assuming that our users are doing the ways that we create the policies is great, but validating that that is taking place is key, and it's a foundational function that we have to do as security teams, CISOs and IT teams, right? Second is that AI innovation should not slow down the business outcomes. It should be the complete opposite. By leveraging what we offer to you as a business partner from a technology perspective, to bring the great level of enterprise protection to your GenAI would allow you to create those business outcomes and facilitate what your organizations are looking. And all we're asking is an opportunity to get to know better your GenAI projects, to help you secure your cloud environments, your on-prem, and we're here to serve you with partners like DXC. The Checkpoint team is here to learn and sit down with you and learn about how can we best serve you the most. With that, I thank you for the time, and have a great lunch.